Welcome to Reformed Baptists on Mission, a podcast of the Reformed Baptist Network. I am John Divito, the Director of Communications and Content Editor for RBNet. And today I am here with Robert Elliott, who is a pastor of the Reformed Baptist Church of Riverside there in California. We're hoping to spend some time discussing raising up missionaries in the local church. Now, Robert, for those of you who don't know, there in California, you have managed to escape Snowmageddon that has taken over most of the rest of
Yeah.
the nation. How have things been there in Southern California?
Yeah. Well, today's one of those days that when people in maybe snowy Michigan or, blizzard torn Tennessee see this, they think I need to move to California despite the governor, because it's beautiful. It's about 75 and sunny. So it's
Uh,
lovely. Yeah.
yeah, you're tempting me right now as we haven't been over freezing in a couple weeks, I think. But the Lord's been kind and faithful, so I'm glad. Well,
Excellent.
for those who don't already know you, can you share a little more about really how you became pastor there at the Reformed Baptist Church of Riverside?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, it goes back 30 plus years now.
Mm.
And it is a remarkable story as we reflect on it. How did I get from Scotland to the west coast of America? And
I was gonna
it
say you
takes
don't quite have the California accent, right?
not yet, but I'm doing my best to Scotify the Californians. It's
There
not
you go.
working too good, but I'm trying. But yeah, as I look back, we just marvel at God's providence. I was pastoring a church in Scotland, and uh, over a period of a few years, uh, I kept getting free flights to America.
Mm.
And, we thought this is wonderful. It's like every Scotsman's dream getting something free. And we thought it was just the Lord encouraging us, and He was, by way of giving us nice vacations in America and meeting some good Reformed Baptist folks, but never dreaming or even desiring to come and live here. But then about just over 30 years ago, I realised that the church I was pastoring, things were coming to an end in that context. Good people, but there was just, we felt it was time to move on. And as that was on our hearts and minds, uh, a little group that had just constituted here in Riverside, initially just a little group of 18 people,
Mm.
invited us over, and we came over for initially 6 months. We called it an engagement to see if we want to be married. Maybe we should
Mm.
have just called it a courtship. I don't know. But when we got here, very quickly we realised there was a knitting of hearts, and we've been here ever since, and very thankful for God's blessing.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
wonderful. It's amazing to hear that you just celebrated 30 years of your ministry there at the church. The Lord has truly been kind to you, brother.
Yeah, it goes so fast,
Yeah.
when we started, if somebody had said, well, in 30 years, you'll be having a 30-year celebration of the church and my ministry, we put it together because it was both 30 years.
Yeah.
Uh, You'd have thought, oh, that's just so far away. And now looking back, it just flies by. It really does. Yeah.
So you were the one who actually planted the church then those 30 years ago?
No, it was planted, it was established, it was constituted in April
Okay.
of 95, and I arrived in July of
Ah,
95. So we just kind of put the two
sure.
celebrations into one, which is right and proper.
So since you've really been there for almost all the history of the church, how would you say that you had sought to intentionally develop and cultivate this missions mindedness and focus there at the church over the years?
Yeah, well, in God's providence, 3 weeks after I came here, Stan Surbatovich, who you probably have heard of, he's a
Mhm.
missionary from California who's out in Montenegro,
Mm,
been there for 30 years.
mm,
He was just leaving, and we managed to have him with us literally a few weeks after I came.
mm,
And immediately there was amongst us this sense of, wow, we're part of something bigger than California,
mm,
Riverside, California. You know,
mm.
we're 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 part of the Great Commission getting spread to the world. So right away we had this sense of, right, let's pray for Stan and Vicky, let's contribute. That was another thing that we thought was really important. And as I look back, it was pennies,
Mm,
to be honest. It was all we could do. But
mhm,
immediately, even having met the missionary and had a visual in our minds, we could hear his voice, so to speak. Praying for him as a church became more real. Then the fact that we contributed, albeit small amounts, it gave us that sense of partnership.
mm,
Uh, and then there was a sense in which the internet was just beginning. Back in 95, prayer letters were beginning to get
yeah,
sent out. So keeping them in front of the people as well, so that they would know what's happening, hear how things are developing. It all just became more 3D
mm,
than previously, in my experience, in Scotland, when things were not as communicative. But the internet changed that.
yeah,
Uh, and then things like, in our church wanting to keep the stories of the missionaries before God's people.
mm,
Like tonight, we're having a thing that we call Kids on a Mission.
mm,
And it's once a month on a Wednesday night, and the kids will come as the adults are at the prayer gathering, and the kids will be there hearing a story of a missionary. And that missionary will be set forth as the real hero, if you know
mm,
what I mean. So
yeah,
even at that level, amongst the adults, meeting them, praying for them, financing them, but amongst the kids, making it clear that the missionaries are, doing an amazing job, and
mm.
just try to create that atmosphere, John.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know, and one of the things I appreciate about our church that we do with our children is, with we have an annual vacation Bible school (VBS) in the summer, and normally with VBS you have these different stations. You have a Bible study and an activity, and
Yeah,
food and those various things. Um, but we actually have a separate time each night of the VBS for missions. It's not
excellent.
included as part of the prepackaged VBS thing, but it's just
Uh-huh.
something we've done each year, and like you said, just trying to build on that, to try to raise awareness among our children of the need for the gospel to continue spreading around the world, and also as just like you say, having people in the church where they can meet missionaries, where they can hear what's going on in the mission field. Of course, sending around prayer updates and other things are all
Yeah,
helpful as well.
yeah.
So yeah, what a
I think
uh,
another thing
encouragement.
is
Yeah.
helpful is having a up-to-date uh, missionary board. Uh,
Mm,
and I say up to date because I have seen missionary boards. I've maybe visited places and there's a missionary board, and the map is faded because it's been there for 30 years.
yeah, yeah.
And then there's little pins, and they're in random places, and you say, "Oh, have you got a missionary here?" And the folks will go, "Oh no, that must have fallen off, and somebody stuck it in there." Just all and then what about this missionary? Oh, the pictures are even faded.
Yeah.
I think having something that is up to date, that people realise maybe that changes with news on the board as much
Mm,
as can be put on a public board. Some
yeah.
cases, not a lot. We realise that. But it just keeps it that, yeah, this is an ongoing thing rather than, yeah, we put that map up, but it's now irrelevant. That
Yeah.
would not be a good signal.
Yeah. Are there additional ways through prayer meetings? You say you have midweek prayer meetings, maybe in certain worship services that you're trying to continue to keep your congregation informed about the need, and of course
Yeah.
what your current missionaries are doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So our prayer gathering is a Wednesday night. So half of that is devoted to praying for missionaries, the other half for a very needy group in Riverside, California. So we plead for ourselves and we plead for those who are on the field. So there's always updates at that, but then also on a Sunday night, uh, our Sunday evening service begins with a couple of songs, and then three men will pray, and two of them are going to be praying for missionaries. So
Mm,
that's our Sunday evening is very different from the Sunday morning service.
yeah.
So doing a Sunday evening allows us that kind of opportunity that might be a wee bit different and awkward on a Sunday morning.
Mm.
But, when we gather, we do that on a Sunday night. Also on a Sunday night, we say night, it's 4:30, but, that's what we still call it, the Sunday
Yeah.
evening. Uh, we, uh, we sometimes, regularly, Zoom in our missionaries.
Okay.
Uh, and instead of having three guys praying, we'll Zoom them in and have a live conversation.
Mm.
Last time I actually asked them to take the phone and put it at their window so that everybody could see the street, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, just, you see the people, not only when the faces come on the screen lightening up, our people just getting all excited. And, then
Mm.
the missionaries can see us and they're pointing at people and their kids are up at the camera,
Yeah.
looking at everybody. But when they get to see the house that they're living in and the
Mm.
street that they're on, uh, our folks are there. They realise that we are partners in this task,
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
that
been
yeah.
helpful.
Absolutely. We haven't had many opportunities, but I do know when we've had the opportunity for Zoom calls, you get over the time differences, and you're able to work those things out. It truly is a blessing.
Yeah,
How do you, as elders, since you're seeking to be so intentional about these opportunities through prayer updates and other things, how are you seeking to stay informed, to stay focused, to stay in touch? Some missionaries are great at communicating. Some may be a little busy and not as
yeah.
great as communicating. So, what are some things you have found helpful, even in that aspect, as elders, to be able to have this kind of regular updating and praying in those other ministries?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, direct visits are important.
Mm,
We've been able to do that with one of the missionaries, just about a year ago. But to be honest, Signal is amazing.
mm,
We have different groups that
mm,
maybe there's myself and the missionary, the elders and the missionary, uh, the men of the church and
mm,
the male missionary and the sister that's out. She's on a group with ladies.
mm,
So there's all kinds of opportunities, and sometimes it's we want to just talk about chit chat and, as
mm,
we'll call it, banter.
mm,
So that there's actual real life normal communication. It's not all would you pray for this?
mhm,
Would you advise on this? It's also matters pertaining to daily life. And, the missionary can engage with his friends back home. However, we
mm.
also realise that we don't want them investing too much time in that,
Right, right.
because they're there to invest in new relationships.
Mm,
But they do need that, because they
mm,
are the ones I'm thinking of right now, very much on their own, very much isolated.
mm,
Uh, every kind of time they go out the door, they're
mm,
walking out into an environment where people all look at them,
mm,
where everybody's talking a language which now, they're learning.
mhm.
But initially, people could be literally looking you in the face and mocking you, and you
Mm.
wouldn't know, you
Yeah.
know?
Right, right.
uh, so there's that sense.
Even with a heavy Scottish accent.
And that happens from time to time. People will mock a Scottish accent, believe it or not. But, there's that sense in which they need that engagement with their home church, with their pastors, at just a friend level, as well as when it comes to matters of advice and what have you. And with one of our elders in particular would be more dedicated to, the advice
Mm,
moments with that couple, but then we're all involved
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and as I think of your church, the Lord has not only blessed you to be involved with various missionaries, that you've developed relationships over time or even through the Reformed Baptist Network, but you've been able to raise up and send out missionaries as well, through this time. How would you say you've been able to, with the Lord, of course, blessing these efforts, to seek to raise up and send out missionaries from your own church?
Well, we've had a couple of opportunities to do that, and we're very thankful. We'd love to see more.
Mm,
Uh, when you realize what they go out to, you definitely would not do it willy-nilly just for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
To go from a couple to a few and then more, it really isn't about numbers, because it is a challenge out there for them. They really do need our prayers. But, what we want to have is a heart that's open to listen to those that have got a burden.
Mm,
Uh, there's a sense in which we want to avoid having a robotic, rigid, this is how things must be done. What we have discovered is that in the realm of missionaries, things are going to be fluid and
mm,
they're going to change. And you need to be very flexible. I think even of the great missionaries, one right in my mind just now, David Livingstone, he was
mm.
set for China.
Yep.
He wanted to go to China. And that door closed. There was the opioid wars out there in China, came at the wrong time for him,
Yep.
but the right time for Africa.
Mm,
And it wasn't his first choice. Just even at that level, to have an openness that somebody may have a burden, and okay, you said you had a burden for that place. What's happened? Well, what's happened is God's providence,
mm,
and there's no mistakes. So just being open, flexible, listening to the heart of those that feel a sense of call, uh, and being willing to even make decisions that might have to be changed,
mm.
rather than, oh, we made this decision, we've got to stick to it. Be flexible. I don't know if that answers your question, brother. I don't
Well, I
know
think
where I
it's
went there.
helpful, yeah, a lot of times it's just, what's the next step we can take, right? And then we'll see what the Lord does with it. And then if certain
Absolutely.
things head in that direction, well, let's take another step and see what the Lord does with it, and that may reorient things. No, I think that's helpful. I wonder, are there certain things that you have found yourself doing, maybe among the youth or the young adults, as they're trying to figure out what their future has in mind, in considering, various missions opportunities, if the Lord may be calling them in that way?
Yeah. I think one thing that we did that I would do again and again, is if somebody says, I really believe this is what the Lord wants, be willing to spend a wee bit of money as a church and
Mm,
send them out there,
mm,
and let them taste it. I'm thinking of one that we sent to a very primitive tribal situation for 3 months as a teenager.
mm,
And our thought was, if there's still a desire, after rats are running through the little hut, uh, it's sleeping with rats all around in some occasions. And indeed, there was the desire.
mm,
It wasn't a case of, okay, I had this romantic idea that I would go out to the mission field. And then another situation that is live just now, a young person that is interested in a life, dedicated to missionary work. Um, well, go into, given the challenge of go into, a work context,
mm,
and show that you can make friends with those who are completely lost.
mm,
Because I think a lot of times, I know even in my own mind, you imagine, well, I am who I am here. I'm quiet with the Great Commission and the gospel here. But if I went to the mission field, boy, I would be a David Livingstone or a John Patton. I would be, a different person. You're not.
yeah,
So developing the character,
mm,
and the heart and the recognition of the disappointments that come, uh, through committing yourself, giving yourself, befriending, and then being let down, and
mm,
dealing with those things in America, because
mhm,
that's going to happen wherever you go in this world. So things like that, just practically to
yeah,
try and encourage them to realize, this is what it would be like, but you'll be way more lonely, that kind
yeah.
of thing.
Well, and it adds, of course, I mean, language learning, culture shock, all those
Yeah.
kinds of dynamics add in, but like you say, I remember back when I was in seminary, one of my professors of missions, said, "Nothing changes when you buckle your seatbelt on the airplane," right? Like, who you've been at
That's exactly
home
what I'm saying. Yep, that's
is
brilliant. Yeah.
is gonna be what you're like in the field, and so in many ways, yeah, we want youth and others who have this desire, let's encourage that, but let's develop them into the kind of men and women who the Lord can use, right? With
Yeah,
that spiritual maturity and flexibility and character, to bring the gospel over the long haul to plant churches with the
yeah.
Lord's will. So,
I think that's
uh,
great. I like that statement. Nothing
yeah.
changes when you buckle the belt. That is so true. I love it. I'll use it.
There you go. Well, then, what advice would you give to pastors and church leaders as they seek to be raising up missionaries as well? We all know the words of Jesus: the harvest is plentiful, but the labors are few, and so we certainly want to be in prayer, and that's
Yeah,
central to our task. But we have a network, and even by God's grace, a reach beyond the network. From your own experience and your 30 plus years of ministry, what would be some things you'd want to encourage pastors and church leaders to be doing so that we can seek to spread the gospel through missions around the world?
yeah. I think that it, our network gives hope to small churches
Mm,
that even in those contexts, our brothers can be thinking in terms of, well, do we have somebody who's missionary minded, who the Lord does seem to be raising up? If they were on their own, the pastor might be thinking, I don't even want to go there. I'm nervous about pushing this or even encouraging it. I'm nervous about that because what we're going to do, how, how are we going to be able to financially support them
mm,
and actually make this happen?
yeah.
But our network does give an opportunity for the smaller churches to plug in
Hmm.
and to recognize that, if the consciences of sister churches are one that, yeah, this person, is going out, it seems legitimately, then there are others who can
Yeah.
join in the support. So I would encourage my brothers, especially in the smaller churches, have still the big vision,
Mm,
and have that sense of these young ones still can be used, and we can get them out if the Lord is really in this. A
mhm.
bit of patience, going out, getting to know other churches, spreading the word, sharing the vision. There's hope. Um, I would say that would be one thing that I think the network really does give an opportunity to. Somebody in a rural setting, small country church, we could never send them out. How would we do? Well, there are sister churches that may be able to help, you
Or
know?
even beyond, I completely agree, but even beyond, let's say you have a young person in your church who has this burden or this desire. You have a network of churches that may have missionaries in the field that could have them come over and help for a
That's
season,
good.
or
Yeah.
could just provide more information about what it's like to minister in that part of the world. Or there's just so many of these blessings and benefits, even from you and from your church with your experiences for people that are seeking to grow in these areas. So I know I'm on staff with the network, so you could say I'm paid to say these things, but the truth is I'm also an elder of a local church
Yeah.
and see the value and benefit of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's true. And I know you're engaged in it, John, not because you're paid to do it, but you're paid to do it because this is what your vision is. This is what your
yeah,
heart is. We
yeah,
know that there's good in this. We really do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, grateful for you and for your church and for your service in the network. We see the fruit of so many of these things, even with the missionaries in the network that we've partnered alongside you to send to unreached language groups of those who've never heard of Jesus, or to be strengthening of churches, and even some of the international church planting work. Maybe would it be helpful to talk about how the Lord has helped you become more engaged with international church planting?
Well, yeah, we've been blessed to see a church planted in Mexico, just across the border.
Mm.
So it sounds wonderful when you say international, but we can, we drive an hour and a half, park the car, cross the border, get picked up, and in 20 minutes we're fellowshipping with the folks that are now an established church
Mm.
down there in Tijuana. And then the Lord blessed that in that some of our brothers in Ensenada, which is another hour and a half south of Tijuana, they saw, what had been happening in Tijuana, and then they approached us just over a year ago, year and a bit ago, and they asked, could you help us and,
Mm.
do for us what you did for them?
Mm.
Uh, so we've been blessed to be engaged with them, and we anticipate, if the Lord smiles on it, to see another international church. This one's 3 hour drive away
Yeah.
uh, in Ensenada. We hope this summer to see that church constituted.
So
But then,
are they hearing a Scottish inflection of Spanish
oh,
as you
it's
go down there?
hilarious. It's so funny. I don't speak Spanish, but I can read it.
Uh,
So I'll do weddings and things like that in Spanish, and they seem to enjoy it. I was very clear. I says, "Is this ridiculous?" And they're like, "No, we love it." So yeah, a Spanish wedding with a Scottish brogue. But I was going to tell you that even the
mhm.
guys in Ensenada are now hearing from folks in the south of Mexico
Mm.
that are asking, questions, and there's a potential, not so much of us, but of the Mexican churches now seen other groups taught and
Mm.
led, and perhaps, who knows, maybe other churches planted. And I think that's the way it should be. It's not, we're not Big Mother Church. We're a sister church that helped one establish I should say, the Tijuana guys are helping us with Ensenada.
Huh.
So we've got help now as we're doing
Yeah.
Ensenada, and then God willing, maybe the Ensenada and Tijuana guys will see churches planted as
Yeah.
well. So this is all happening just now, and it's just thrilling to see what God is doing.
Yeah, we so often see when the Lord blesses and we seek to be faithful that He can build on that and
Amen.
that's what I'm hearing even now. You start with God giving you an opportunity in Tijuana. You seek to plant a church there, and in His kindness and providence, you're able to do so. And then there's more needs that He raises that awareness, and now you have some experience, some exposure, some knowledge that you're able to utilize and it's exciting to consider what even may continue to be in store.
Yeah.
Uh, I know we don't hold to being a multi-campus Reformed Baptist Church of Riverside becoming some international, multi-site type
Yeah.
thing,
Oh, yeah.
but the Lord's at work, and
Amen.
it's encouraging to hear. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you for joining me, brother, and for sharing some of your thoughts. I hope they're helpful to those who are watching or listening, and want to thank everybody for joining with us.